What is your name, please, and spell it while you look into the
Well,
camera.
I have several names. Do you want my AKAs or my birth name?
Birth name, please.
Bob or Robert Roper.
Spell it, please.
Which one?
Birth.
Bob, B-O-B, Roper, R-O-P-E-R.
So, in swimming terms, what is a frightened turtle?
A frightened turtle. I have no idea what a frightened turtle is. I imagine it's a turtle that's frightened.
Good answer.
Where were you born?
I was born in San Francisco. I'm a third generation native.
What area did you grow up in?
Well, originally I was born in the Richmond district, and then I moved out. My parents and I moved out to the Sunset District in 1948.
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
I don't really remember. No, I had a great childhood. Actually, I was a war baby, born in 1938, and I remember a little bit about the war. I mean, not, the war itself, but I remember there was, my dad was an air raid warden. We had rationing, and we had a victory garden, and it was something, but I was kind of young at the time. I was only, 3 or 4 years old when the war started. Yeah, but it was quite an experience.
So, were you athletic as a child?
No, I guess I ran and jumped and played like that, but no, not really. My first athletic involvement, I guess, was in grammar school. Originally, I went to St. Monica's out in the Richmond district, but then when I moved to the Sunset district, I went to St. Monica's. And then I started playing basketball, and I love basketball. And I ran a little bit. But when I went to Reardon High School, I played basketball, and then I played football and ran track.
Would you say that those abilities came naturally, or which one of those abilities
Yes,
was the most natural?
yeah. My father was a very good athlete, very athletic. He wrestled. He was a gymnast, great swimmer, member of the Olympic Club, lifetime member. My mom was real good. She was very athletic. She was a tennis player. So I inherited a lot from both my mom and my dad. Yeah.
Did you have to work at any of your athletic pursuits?
Not really. At track, I had to work a little hard. I really didn't start to push myself until I really got into track. And then, I love track. I love to run. Yeah.
So, when did you and why did you start to open water swim?
Well, it's kind of a long story. When I was playing football for City College, I got hurt, injured my knee, and I had to have surgery. So that was the end of my football career, And so after that, I went on, and the doctor says, as a rehab, he said, can you get into a swimming pool? And I says, well, at the time, I was a member of the Olympic Club. And I said, yeah. So I was on my crutches. I used to hobble down to the side of the pool and slide in. And at first, I couldn't even swim down to the end of the pool without stopping. And then gradually, I started adding laps, one lap, 2 laps, 4 laps, quarter mile, half mile, and so I really got bit by the swimming bug. And then, like I said, my dad was a great swimmer. He swam across the Golden Gate in 1917 and 1919. And a friend of mine was down at the Olympic Club, and he said, you look like a pretty good swimmer. You ought to think about coming out and swimming in the bay. So, because my dad did the Golden Gate in those years, I wanted to do it because of him. And So I had a buddy of mine that I ran track with in high school, was president of the South End Rowing Club. And in those days, you had to have a sponsor. So I called Dave Gallagher, and I said, Dave, I'm interested in joining the club. So he says, sure. He says, I'll sponsor this. So that was the start of my my swimming career. Yeah.
So do you have any fears while bay swimming or open water swimming?
No, not really, because I swam, like I said, when I finished swimming at the Olympic Club, or continued swimming at the Olympic Club, I was swimming about 6 or 7 miles a day. That's why they call me Napa Bob. And I took to the bay right away. I had no fear, and I was cold because I didn't weigh that much, and the water was cold. But I took to the bay right away, and once I got a taste of the bay, pool swimming was over for me. I still continued to work out in the pool, and then I used to, when I got off in the morning working for the sheriff's department, I used to go up to the pool and swim, and then on a nice day like this, I used to come down to the club, and then work out in the afternoon. Yeah.
So Napa Bob.
Yeah.
What's Napa Bob mean?
Well, when I was growing up, I was a little bit crazy. There was a Napa Institute up in up in Napa, so my moniker was Napa Bob, and I lived up to it when I was when I was growing up. I was crazy.
What do you think about when you're swimming in the bay, or during a long open water swim?
That's strange. Million of things come into your mind. Distance swimming is hard because it's cold, the water is cold, and you think of a million things that pop into your head. I really couldn't say, but basically you're thinking, what am I going to get out of this 50 degrees shark-infested Bay Murphy waters, But yeah, you think of millions and millions of things.
So what do you
The most
wear?
important thing is, you try to keep your mind off being, cold, and that is very hard because you only have a certain period of time when you go in the water until you're really hypothermic, and believe me, I've been hypothermic several times. Yeah.
So that was my question. What do you wear?
Well, just a swimming suit, and goggles and a hat, a cap. Yeah.
So why do you choose swimming over other sports now?
Well, basically, I can't do any other sport now because of my knee. And after the original surgery, I hurt my knee again over in Hawaii when I was surfing. I have to have a second surgery. And then the third surgery, I was playing basketball with this guy named Bill Toohey. And we were out at Skyline College, I think, in Westlake. And so we were playing three a court, three a side, and one of the guys went up that I was guarding, and I went up to block his shot, and I came down right on my knee and shattered my kneecap. So that necessitated a third surgery. So that was it. The doctor says no more anything. I shouldn't have been, playing basketball anyway, but Napa Bob, you couldn't stop him, and so that was it. And luckily, the doctor said, as a rehab, to get into a pool if you can. And like I said, I got into the Olympic Club pool initially, and I almost drowned when I first got in there, and so I rehabbed my knee, and he said something that he shouldn't have said. He said you can swim as much as you want, and you'll never hurt your knee. So then that was like giving candy to a baby, and it was a great part of my life because I had met a lot of friends up at the Olympic Club that we really pushed each other in swimming, and it was it was a great time in my life, you know. The camaraderie, but just the feeling, you know, after I got in shape, I felt like I was a babe in the woods again, and it's an unbelievable feeling. Yeah.
So any injuries actually in the water? Have you had any injuries as a resulted from base
Well,
swimming?
I've been run over by a couple of boats, you know, chased by a couple of seals, a few shark encounters, but basically no injuries, just a lot of hypothermia, you know.
Explain what your favorite part is about open water swimming. What's your favorite part?
Getting out of the shark-infested 50-degree Bay Murky waters. No, it's quite a challenge to go into bay swimming. The water temperature never gets more than 60, 61 degrees at the highest time of the year. Then the winter time, it's brutal. I go as long as I can during the winter time, but usually this year I went into December, almost the end of December. But then the water really starts to drop, and I don't want to end up in the morgue, so out of abundance of caution. But I haven't swam in pools for, God, maybe 25 or 30 years. I just hate pool swimming now. Once I got a taste of open water swimming, the pool swimming was history. And I could go back into a pool during the wintertime, but I just can't bring myself to do it. You know, it's not a natural water. It's chlorinated. You know, everybody pisses in the water. Sorry. But once I got a taste of open water swimming, after about 2 or 3 years of doing both, that was the end of pool swimming. I did a little master swimming in between, but it's so monotonous. Pool swimming is so monotonous. It's back and forth and back and forth. But if you really want to get into shape, you really have to go into pool swimming and do a lot of interval training. And after my golden years, I haven't done a lot of interval training. Yeah.
So sounds like your least and your favorite part of bay swimming is getting out of the cold water, and the least might be what is your least favorite part of bay swimming?
Well, like I said, for everybody going into the water, I don't care who it is, you're going into body temperature's 98.6, and you're going to, let's say, at the highest 61 degrees, so you're dropping 30-something degrees. And it's hard for everybody, I don't care who they are, to get into the water. And, you know, people have different ways to go into the water. Some people just dive in. Other people just dunk and get back out and go back in again. I just go down there, and once I get down to the water, I gotta go. You know, there's no lollygagging. You know, so psychologically, it's hard initially getting into the water, and then after about 3 to 5 minutes, your body acclimates to the water temperature. Then you start feeling a little better, you know. And then during your swim, you just feel better and better and better. But you have to know your limitations too. You have to know how long you can stay in the water without getting close to the hypothermic stage. And before I could stay in maybe 45 minutes to an hour. You know, now as I reach my golden years, I can only stay right now maybe 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes during the summertime. During the wintertime, I'm lucky if I get 10 to 15 minutes, you know. And, I learned, I'm a slow learner, but I learned a lot. I really know what hypothermia is, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Do you have one favorite memory about open water swimming, one that just stands out?
Well, I guess it's my first time that I swam the Golden Gate. I had no illusions when I joined the South End Club of, I just wanted to swim across the gate. And it's just funny now when I look out at the Golden Gate Bridge, or even I drive across it, I just keep asking myself, did I ever swim across this? But I guess my first years of swimming the gate were my greatest years, because I was in a fantastic physical shape, and I guess the highlight of my Golden Gate years were the second year in 1969, when I broke the all-time swimming record of swimming across the gate in 17 minutes and 21 seconds. And I didn't realize at the time during the swim that I was going that fast, but it was a perfect day. The tides were perfect, and I just hit it on the button. And that record has stood for almost 50 years, and I'm very, very proud of it. And swimmers have come close, but when usually they come close, I usually have a boat try to run over them, But that was, all my memories of water swimming are so fantastic. My memories of going to Hawaii initially in the early 70s to do the rough water swims over there, and then starting the Maui Channel swim in 1972. And I've been going over there for roughly about 50 years. And the thing I love most about Hawaii is the water temperature and the weather, It's so great, it's so fantastic. Because when you're going into cold water, you're always apprehensive of, how long can I last in Hawaii or Hawaiian water, which is, 78 to 80 degrees. I'm like a bear, a rabbit in the briar patch, And I can swim 2 or 3 hours out there, and not even have a shiver when I get out. But those were, and still are, my, along with base swimming, greatest memories. And I've met so many wonderful people during my swimming years, from all over the world practically. And I swam with Olympians, and I swam with turtles and rabbits, But I'm very, very blessed because of my injuries. My third injury, I thought, that was it. That was the end of everything. I couldn't do anything. I used to run a lot, naturally, from high school. Before I got hurt the third time, I used to run, 5 or 6 miles every day, and like swimming, I really, really, really love running. I love the feel of the speed and the euphoria that you get, like you get in swimming. And when you're in great shape, like I was, in my early years of base swimming, there's no comparison of how you feel. It's the greatest athletic feeling, euphoria. It's the greatest drug in the world. It beats, whiskey and cocaine and marijuana, and anything you want to mention. But when you have an athletic high, it's something that it's so unbelievable, because you feel so fantastic, and you're so alive, and full of life, But, like I said, that was the flood of my life, and as you start to get older, you run into little ebbs of your life. So I haven't felt that euphoria that I had back in the early days of my base swimming. But that's the nature of the beast. Everybody gets old and everybody slows down. but I'm still blessed with having to swim in the bay. Yeah, yeah.
So, your favorite memory is that first time with the gate. So, do you have an absolute favorite swim? One that you think of?
Oh yeah, so there's no question is the Golden Gate. You know, thousands of people have swam Alcatraz, and I've swam Alcatraz, I don't know, maybe 40, 50, 60 times, something like that. But I think everybody's favorite swim is the Golden Gate. I mean, you know, when you get in the water and you look up at that, you know, that eighth, I call it the eighth wonder of the world. I mean, you're so insignificant, you know, you're just a little dot, you know, and it's so massive. But the currents out there, and you know, if you pick the right day, which I had, it was fortunate to have in 1969. It's not only mine, but I think most of the swimmers in the South End Rowing Club and bay swimmers is the Golden Gate, not Alcatraz. Alcatraz is, everybody does Alcatraz, you know, and I kind of kid everybody. I call it the Alcatraz horror because everybody's swimming Alcatraz all the time. Sorry. But it's a great challenge, you know, and there's thousands of people that come out from all over the world to swim Alcatraz every year for the simple reason of the theory that nobody can swim from Alcatraz, you know. But basically, for a good swimmer, it's not a hard swim, you know. It's a relatively easy swim. And but for the Golden Gate, it's a little more challenging. You have stronger tides out there, and you have a few finny creatures that you know might have you on their menu. So it's like I said, but. You know, not to be redundant, but when I look out at the Golden Gate, and even I can look out now, I just can't imagine that I've ever swam across that because it's such a huge, massive, you know, beautiful, you know, wonder of the world. You know, people come from all over the world. You know, they go to Chinatown, and you know they go to actually sometimes Alcatraz, but they always go across the Golden Gate. You know. Yeah, so hands down, not only for what I've done swimming across the Golden Gate, but you know, when I tell swimmers that go out there and start to swim, I said, look up, you know, when you're swimming along, and look up and see that beautiful structure. They say that never could be made. You know, yeah, it's hands down, it's the Golden Gate, no question. Yeah.
So, with all your experience, what, in your opinion, are the most important elements in open water swimming?
Well, number one, like any sport, you know, you have to start slow, you know, and like I said, a lot of people come out here, you know, to join the club, and you first have to get acclimated to water, you know, because most people that come to the club are, you know, fairly good swimmers, medium swimmers, but there's a lot of swimmers that come in that, you know, haven't really swum in cold water or water swimming before, and I just tell them that, you know, you have to start slow, you know, get in the water, feel the water, swim 4 to 5 minutes, see what your comfort level is, you know, and then gradually increase your exposure, your time in the water, you know. So if you get in and, you know, most people when they haven't done bay swimming and they come down and get into the water, you go, oh, shit, you know, what have I done? Father, forgive me, I know not what I'm doing. But it's very addictive. It's really addictive. Once you get addicted to open water swimming and bay swimming, it's a strong addiction. It's a strong addiction over anything. I always call it a positive addiction. like any other, overeating or drugs or, booze or, but I always had anything I always did, I overdid, okay? And I always say anything worth doing is worth overdoing. And that's been my philosophy, and that's what I've done all my life, through everything that I do all my life, to the benefit sometimes, and to the not benefit at other times, But I've always been a type AAA personality, and I think that was really healthy in sports and athletics. I think the only reason I got through high school was because of my athletics. I got so many one-legged A's. It was unbelievable, and I had to go to summer school with a friend of mine. His name was Tui. Tui. I used to go. Bill and I used to have to go to summer school, but Bill was never too swift. The only thing he did during high school was draw custom cars. So, I think I went to summer school 3 years, and it was a miracle. I think the only reason they graduated me is just to get me out of high school. I was a terrible student, and terrible at math. I was terrible at everything. And the only thing I wanted to do in high school is sports. I mean, I couldn't wait for that bell 2:30 to ring to get out on in the basketball court or out on the track or on the football field. It was my whole life, and I should have put more time in the books, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I used to really frustrate my dad, because my dad was a very good student and very great in math, and I the only thing I couldn't even learn the timetables. I was so bad at math, but I finally struggled through, and when I went to City College, the same way, getting into football, and I wasn't too good at my studies at City, but luckily I graduated. Yeah.
So, can you give us an idea of how you enter the water and how you exit the water? Is there any kind of ritual to that for you? What do you do when you enter and exit?
Well, psychologically, like I said before, it's hard getting into the water, no matter who you are.
Let's start that question one more time. Do you gotta go to the bathroom, babe?
No.
Okay. Let's just do it one more time. Just
Okay,
start.
so can you give us a little idea of your ritual when you enter the water and after you exit the water? Do you have any kind of ritual or anything that you do special?
Well, I was told one time my lucky numbers are 4s and 8s, okay? So I always have a watch. I want to know when I'm in the water how long I've been swimming. A lot of swimmers don't have watches, and they don't care how long they're in the water. It's really important to me to know how long I've been in the water because of hypothermia. So I know my limitations. I really do. I know how long I can stay in the water at a certain temperature. So I usually go down to the water, and I usually look at my watch, and if it's a 4, I go in, or if it's an 8, I go in, So it's kind of a superstitious way of me swimming, And, like I said before, once you get in the water, you have to go. A lot of people lollygag, they breaststroke, they backstroke, they roll over on their back. But when I get in the water, I've got to go. I mean, I go balls out. There's no stopping me, because I gotta go. I can't stop. And during all of my swims, I've got to go. Except Hawaii, I can stop about 1,000 times when I go to the islands, because the water temperature is so beautiful. But and in all my sports, I've always had to go full bore. I've always had to go full bore. That's my type AAA personality. And but once you acclimate to cold water, it's a great feeling. It's a fantastic feeling, and there's some days where you really click, you know, with the water. Everything is just right, and you feel invincible as you're stroking along. And that doesn't happen too often, but every once in a while you hit that spot, you know, the G spot. You know, it's a wonderful feeling. And then, of course, when I get out of the water, I'm always cold because, you know, I don't weigh that much. And I weighed a little more when I first started base swimming, open water swimming. But now I'm a skinny little shit, so I gotta be careful about the water. So there's a sauna. And the first couple of years in the South End Rowing Club, we didn't have a sauna, you know. So what we did to warm up, we had a 50-gallon drum, and we used to light a big fire in it. And then after we got out of the water, everybody huddled around this drum to warm up. And then about 2 years after I joined the club, they built a sauna. Some of the members of the club built a sauna. And that's my middle name now, is Asana. So once I get out of the water, I'm you know, I set a record from the beach up into the sauna, yeah, and it's probably about maybe a tenth of a second. But I take about maybe a 30-second shower, and then bam, I'm right into the sauna, and then I have a swimmer sauna ratio, you know, and during the summertime I maybe take a maybe 15 or 20-minute sauna. During the wintertime, my swimmer ratio goes up from maybe 1-to-1 during the summertime to maybe 5 or 6-to-1, you know. For every minute I stay in the water during the wintertime, I usually have 5 minutes in the sauna. And believe me, it takes me quite a while to warm up, to even get a sweat in the sauna, you know. And yeah, I love the sauna. I don't know, I couldn't really swim without a sauna. And I've done open water swims around the area where I didn't have a sauna. And I did a swim up in Lake Natomas. It's by Sacramento one time. It was a 2-mile swim. And the runoff from the snow was very, very cold. And we went down to start to swim. All these guys were putting on wetsuits, and I'm going, wow, what do you mean wetsuits, you know? So I got out after the swim, and I was like an ice cube, and there was no sauna. So I got into my car, and I turned the heater on, and I swear to God, I think I was in my car for about 45 or 50 minutes before I even had any vital signs, you know. So yeah, and people have to know their limitations. There's a lot of people who have gotten in trouble, including me several times, out there swimming because of hypothermia. That's the biggest threat to open water swimming, cold water swimming, is hypothermia. And you got to know your limitations, and you know, by knowing your limitations, you have to, you know, feel it out. You know, feel your comfort level in the water. Yeah.
I bet I can answer my own question, but fresh water or salt water?
Salt water. Salt water, definitely. Fresh water is more of a challenge. It's harder to swim in fresh water because you're not as buoyant. Salt water is, you get more invigorated, I think, in salt water. But yeah. But water is water. Yeah, even in the pool, if you have to swim in the pool. But only remember, only the fools swim in the pools, and only the nuts have got the guts. Okay, you're right. But you know, like I said, I haven't swum in the pool in maybe 40, 50 years, something like that. But you know, swimming is swimming. There's a lot of people that can't swim in open water, can't swim in cold water. So, you know, pool swimming, you know, is great for them, you know. And but there's no comparison to the two, you know. a lot of pool swimmers, they hesitate to get into open water, but after they get into open water base swimming, usually sometimes that's the end of their pool careers. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a best way to fuel up for an open water swim?
It's the best way, pardon me?
To fuel up, to eat or to?
Well, there's different there's different philosophies in feeding. In distance swimming, marathon swimming, usually when people have swam the Farallon Islands, Catalina, and all the long swims throughout the world. You eat what you can tolerate. A lot of people take goo, Cytomax, bananas, Snicker bars, believe it or not. But you have to find a food that's compatible with you when you swim. And knowing how to do that is, taking different foods during the training swims. But I never really feed before my swims. One time we had a base swim and I had some orange juice and it kept coming up. I kept feeling it and coming up in my mouth during the swim. So I always swim in an empty stomach. I just feel better doing that, And I've got friends that have 3-course meals and go in the water and swim, and it's all individual, by the individual. But you have to find a food, a fuel that's compatible with you, that can keep you going. And all the great open water swimmers, usually in distance swimming, feed about every half an hour, and that's about the normal case for distance swimming. Some feed 20 minutes, some 40 minutes, some feed the first hour. It's all what you're comfortable with, and you learn your feeding comfort in your training swim. Yeah.
So, any last thoughts? Can you talk about any of your awards, your records? We heard about one record for the Golden Gate. Are there more? Are there awards that are given in base swimming and in open water swimming? Yeah,
I was after I set my record for the Golden Gate in 1969. I think in 1970 or 71, I set the round trip record for going over and back for the Golden Gate. Yeah. So I still hold that.
What was that record?
50 minutes, 50. Yeah. But and we always had, when I would join the club, I was a young kid on the block, but we had a lot of seasoned swimmers down there who started swims, and in 1969 we did a Farallon relay from the Farallon Islands to the club. And then in 1969, they started what they call a Trans-Tahoe relay, and the South End Rowing Club started that. And we started at Sunnyside Resort, and we swam over across to which is now the Hyatt, but it was King's Castle at the time, and it's about a 12-mile swim. And the first couple of years we swam against the Dolphin Club, and we were fortunate to beat the Dolphin Club. And then the South End Rowing Club didn't want to sponsor the swim anymore, and thank God the Olympic Club picked it up. And now, about 50 years later, they have maybe 100, 150 teams that do the Trans-Tahoe relay. but I'm very proud that I was involved in that first two swims across Tahoe. And we have a lot of members that have swam not only the width of Tahoe, but the length. So the width is about 11 to 12 miles, and the length is 21 miles. So we've had a lot of South End Rowing Club members that have swam both the width and the length of Lake Tahoe. And some of them still hold those records. In Lake Tahoe, during the summertime, the water temperature for distance swimming is not too bad. It's around 67, 68 degrees, which was relatively good for open water, cold water distance swimmer. But as you know, during the winter time, it kind of gets a little snow up there, so probably the water temperature get down to in the 30s. But during the summertime, Tahoe water temperature can be very, very comfortable. And it's a beautiful venue to swim in. I mean, swimming along and you look down and the water is so beautiful indigo blue. And that's one of my favorite swims outside Hawaii is Lake Tahoe. It's a great feeling to swim up there. Yeah. And it's hard. It's
fresh water though, right?
It's fresh water. It's harder to swim up there. The altitude is around 6,000 feet. You got to be careful. You got to be in shape. I've seen a lot of swimmers go up there and get hurt. Now, what I mean by that is they're really not in shape, and when they get in the water and they start swimming, especially if they start swimming fast, they hyperventilate. And I've seen a lot of swimmers get in trouble up there because they're not in shape. So you got to have a lot of respect for altitude swimming, Lake Tahoe swimming, because you can really get hurt up there. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people get hurt. Yeah, and like I said, the greatest thing you have to have for water is respect. It's the greatest power in the world. And I always say it can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. And believe me, I've been on both sides of that, both sides. Yeah.
So you light up significantly when you talk about Hawaii and swimming in Hawaii.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, in the early part of my swimming career, we went over to Hawaii. I think it was in probably 1970, 71. And a real good friend of mine I met over there, Jim Cotton, who started the rough water swim at Waikiki in 1970. And the first couple of years we did the Waikiki rough water swim. And at that time, there was only about maybe 50, 60 swimmers at the most in its infancy and its start in 1970. Today, they have almost 1,000 swimmers that do the Waikiki rough water swim every year. And Jim Cotton started that swim in 1970, and he's a very, very close friend of mine. And then in 1971, I was swimming up at the Olympic Club, and Jim came down, and he was swimming in the pool. So I said to Jim, I said, Jim, you're from Hawaii, you love Hawaii, you love swimming over there. I says, I think it'd be a great idea if we had a relay swim over in Hawaii. So at first I kind of forgot about it, and then a month or two later, Jim calls me and he says, hey, we got a swim lined up, and we're going to swim from the island of Lanai to Maui, and it's about 11 miles. And I said, well, what are you going to call it, Jim? And he said, well, we're going to call it the Maui Channel Swim. So we had a team from the Bay Area, and we had 2 swimmers from the Olympic Club, two from the South End, and 2 from the Dolphin Club, I think, that initially went over that first year. And Jim had a team with the Waikiki Swim Club, and we were fortunate enough to win the Maui Channel Swim the first year in 1972. And then they claimed that we stacked our team with studs and speedsters, you know. And then the second year, they stacked their team, okay? So they won the second year, okay? So the third year, I said, this bullshit, we want to stack our team, you know? So the third year, we went over, and we won the third year, okay? And then we sat down and said, we got to make up some rules about this, about stacking a team. And but Jim moved back to the mainland, and luckily Ian Emberson, who was a swimmer from the Waikiki Swim Club, continued the Maui Channel swim. Thank God. So right now it's close to 50 years, and I've been going over every year with teams, and it's a fantastic experience. A lot of my friends have done solos, from Lanai to Maui. A real good friend of mine, Deanne Joslin, has done a double over and back, which is roughly 20 miles, So people are really, really pushing the envelope. When I started my swimming, there's no such thing as a triathlon or a marathon. And right now, you got the Ironman, the double Ironman, the triple Ironman, and people in sports are doing, extreme sports now. I mean, they run Western States 100, running 100 miles. The Death Valley run, I think, is 135 miles through 110 degrees. Got a friend of mine that's done it a couple of times, and he says, what you have to do is you have to run down the middle of the pavement on the stripe. Otherwise, your shoes would melt, So talk about the ultimate sports. I mean, it's... But in my infancy of swimming, when I first joined the club, we only had 5 of-water swims in the bay. Now we got about 25 swims, and we've got they're called nutcracker swims, the harder swims, and they swim the Bader Breakers now. We swim Point Bonita, Round Trip Alcatraz, and it's really, really great for open-water swimming. When I joined the club, there was only 200 members. Now there's over 1,000 members, And we even have women members swimming in the club. But that was a great day when the ladies joined the club, And we have about 800 or 900 male members and about 275 women members, yeah. So we have a lot of fun with the girls in the swim, yeah. Sometimes co-ed sauna, sometimes co-ed showers. It's great,
So, any last thoughts? Any last tidbits you want to throw out?
Well, I've been very, 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 very blessed of number one, being inherited from my DNA, from my parents, through their athletic ability, passing it on to me. My brother was a very good athlete. He was a great baseball player, but he never went into overwater swimming or anything like that. But he lived like I lived my life. His whole life was baseball. Like my whole life was football, basketball, track, and swimming, But when I injured my knee the last time, I just, I didn't know what I was going to do, because I couldn't chance another injury to my knee, because the doctor says you might not have a knee after that, and it was long before knee transplants and hip transplants, and but a lot of times that, sometimes out of real bad things and tragedy comes real positive things. And the most positive thing in my whole life was getting into swimming. I mean, I'm just so blessed of that happening to me, you know, and like I said, all the people that I've met through swimming, all the swimming that I've done all over the world, I just pinch myself sometimes to think that, you know, I was given this blessing or this gift, you know, and I'm the luckiest person in the world to have this, and I've tried to pass that on to swimmers, you know. Over the years, I've helped hundreds and thousands of swimmers train. I've done a lot of piloting in my golden years, and one of the highlights of my life is years ago, a couple of swimmers came in from Arizona, and they had this young boy, his name Braxton Dilbury, and he was, I think, 7 years old. And so his coach Joe Zamitis wanted him to swim Alcatraz. So we took him out, and he swam Alcatraz, and he was 7 years old. And then he wanted to swim the Golden Gate, okay? And this kid was a fabulous swimmer. I mean, he was 7 years old. He was a world-class swimmer. Very, very good now, but I understand he found girls, so he's not into swimming that much anymore. But then he came out the next year, and at 8 years old, he swam round trip Alcatraz. And he started from the club at the South End Rowing Club, the beach, swam around Alcatraz Island and back to the club. I think his time was about an hour and 35 minutes. So Joe said, I think it'd be a great idea if we brought some kids out from, they call Swim Neptune or FAST in Arizona, Scottsdale. And he says, could you help me with it? So that was around 14 or 15 years ago. And so the first year they came out, we had, maybe 30, 40, 50 swimmers. And some of the ages of the swimmers, I call them kids, were anywhere from 8 to 18. You know, imagine an 8-year-old swimming from Alcatraz. So we did that, and then Joe calls me and he said, can we do a Golden Gate swim? And I go, oh boy, Alcatraz is a lot different from the Golden Gate, And I said, well, I was kind of nervous about it, but then the second year. We did, usually on Saturday, we did Alcatraz, and on Sunday we did the Golden Gate. And now it's just really exploded for that team, Swim Neptune. Over the last couple of years, we've had almost 90 swimmers, both for Alcatraz and the Golden Gate. And we got a lot of support from South End Rowing Club, and a lot of the swimmers, we call them swim angels. They swim along with the slower swimmers and the kids, and it's one of my highlights of not the year but my whole life, because it's quite an honor to help children, swim. And believe me, imagine if you were 8 years old coming out and swimming Alcatraz or the Golden Gate. I mean, I would be shitting in my pants, But it's so rewarding, and I'm so honored to be involved with children, Because believe me, it's hard enough for an adult to go into open water swim or cold bay swimming. But imagine a kid 8, 9, 10 years old, And it's unbelievable because the parents have been so supportive of it, Most of the parents don't push their kids, But I can only think of the fear, and the nervousness of children coming out and swimming, not only bay swimming, but swimming Alcatraz and the Golden Gate. I mean, But I always tell them, I says, after you do this, you can do anything in your whole life. Nothing that you can't accomplish, because it's, and believe me, the confidence that these kids have after they do that, you know, and they write me thank you letters and everything like that. But, you know, and I tell them every year in and year out, how honored I am to be involved in their swims. Yeah, so that's really, really a very, very highlight of my life and my year. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I met some unbelievable swimmers over the years. Some very, very close friends that are still very close and dear. I swam with Olympians, Olympic champions. And as I sit here talking to you, I'll just count my blessings. I'm very blessed.
I love you, Bob.
Thank you.
Love you.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'd like to try that take again, but I want more tears. If you could look into the eye and have the tears show up.
Oh my gosh.
Give me a kiss.
Oh. Oh, so sweet.
That was good.
Picture of my dear friend.
Get over there. Get over there. Get over
Okay.
Oh. That was so cute.
there. One more.
Oh.
Just
No, that was perfect ending, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Did you get it?
beautiful.
Way to ace
Get over there, you
the
guys.
ending.
Get a picture of Bob.
Come on. No tears.
With
though.
all his girls.
With
Yeah,
all my
no
girls.
No tears.
All his
No,
girls.
my bevy of beauties.
Yeah, but we have our tops on.
Ready?